Okay. Well, my friend, again, thank you for being here and welcome to the podcast, FDA podcast.
Well, thank you for inviting me, man. This is a
Yeah,
challenge.
it's a challenge. I'm actually thinking on changing the name
Mhm.
of Fuera del Aula. What do you think about it? Because as I told you, I want to live in another country,
Hmm.
and it's usually better for me if I expand my network and start to practice English. And I have podcasts in English too, right?
Okay, so you want to like have a name for an English-speaking audience.
Yeah, more international, right?
Any
Uh,
ideas?
out of the school.
Out of school, out of the classroom, right?
Out of the room. I don't know. For
I
example,
mean, you can keep the initials, right? Like FAD.
yeah, that's why I'm using FDA podcast, but that's a hard one, because FDA is it's the name in United States of the FDA Federation. I
Like the
think it's
Food Drugs
yeah, it's about
Federation.
food. Yeah,
Yeah,
Federation, Food and Drug Administration.
yeah,
And they have podcasts too. So
yeah. Maybe there's some people are entering. It's like, yo, this is not about drugs or food.
yeah.
They're talking about science and meditation. Right?
Yeah, for example, do you know what's a great name? Have you ever heard Russell Brand?
Oh yeah, the I know him from like the ex of Katy Perry, right?
Yeah, yeah. he's
The bearded
he,
guy and everything.
yeah, he's such a guy. I don't know what's his old background. I know he was like uh an addict, alcoholic, and sex addict too. I think. Um, but right now he's like a monk. Actually, he's a monk, and he has his podcast too, and the name is Under the Skin.
Hmm.
It's a great name.
That's a nice name. I like the name. But yeah, I've
Yeah,
seen some of his videos because once you get started, like in the self-help genre, you see some videos and they always suggest you some videos. And I've seen the suggestions, right? He talks about many of the classic things: meditation, self-help, self-growth, those
yeah,
things.
yeah. It's very interesting. I don't know. For example, he has usually he has guests like I don't know, from artists to it's very flexible as Joe Rogan. It's very
Mhm.
similar, but he has his own style, right?
Yeah, what I find it interesting is that I don't know if you've noticed, but I think there's like a tendency for these type of people. Like for example, another example could be the Wolf of Wall Street. They're like these people who
Ah,
hit like big success, right? They have a lot of success financially.
Jordan
Like I
Belfort.
told you, Russell Brand also, who was dating Katy Perry. He was in Hollywood, comedian, very famous. But it's like they hit this level where they try to find something else and they can't find it. And I guess that's why they have this change to help other people, create podcast content about meditation, help self-growth.
Yeah, it's
That's what I find
interesting.
interesting about them.
Yeah, and maybe that's the positive side, because the negative side is that there's a lot of there's a huge market on this, the knowledge industry, because I mean, podcast, what Jordan Belfort with his own podcast, and other business podcast business, um, but I don't know if they do it only because they want to help, because it is a
Mm,
great business too. It's a fucking great business, because it's passive income. When you
mhm,
have these digital products, it's passive income. So you can create wealth, not just money, wealth. So
mhm,
it's a lot of money.
mhm. Yeah, I think it's also a response. I mean, I don't know if you've seen um, Black Mirror. There's an episode in Black Mirror where they talk about social media, right? And to summarize, there's this guy who got into an accident, and it was because he was checking his Facebook, let's say Facebook, and his wife died, right? So then he has this plan to kidnap one of the workers from the company from Facebook, right? And he ends up kidnapping somebody, and he wants to speak with the head, right, with the CEO, let's say like Mark Zuckerberg, right?
Mm.
And they start talking about how he actually hates the company because he thinks that they're manipulating people, right? People are getting addicted, right? And that's like why he had that accident. So now
Mm.
the owner of Facebook says something interesting, right? He says, actually, this started being one thing, right? It was meant to be one thing, and it ended up being something completely different, right? Um, and there's like a department that's in charge of how to produce more dopamine and those things. And I think we're in that stage right now in podcasts where maybe it started as a attack or like a counter culture against television, right? Like
Mm.
the classic verses between Blockbuster and Netflix. Now I
Yeah.
think it's like podcasting and everything against television and radio also, right? Because sometimes
Yeah.
people
It is.
don't like nobody listens to radio anymore. They prefer to listen to podcasts. So I
Mm.
think we're in a place where we don't know what's the future of podcasts, right? Maybe like
Yeah.
you've seen Joe Rogan now is in Spotify. Maybe in the future you can have your, I don't know, your Chromecast connected to your TV, and you're gonna
Uh-huh.
watch Joe Rogan your TV like it was a TV show, right?
Do you know that he has his own like format in Spotify, video format? You can, if you, for example, me that I am in Spotify too, I can upload video frames, video
Mhm.
yeah frames, but he can. So if you search on Joe Rogan podcast, he has a specific contract with him with them,
Mhm.
um, and you will see a video in Spotify. Very very interesting.
Yeah, I find it
So it's
interesting
changing.
because
It's changing, man. You know.
I think he's the first, and now he's the only person, right, who can have that
No,
video platform.
there are three right now. I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there are
What do they
three.
talk about?
I don't know. I didn't see them. I think I there are like Logan Paul is the name.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know
so, no,
about that guy. Yeah.
something like that. Something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I hate that
Yeah.
content.
Yeah, I don't
But
know. It's very interesting. For example, do you know what's interesting too is my Midnight Gospel. That's
oh yeah, of course.
it's a funny show. It's a funny show, and it's very Duncan Trussell is madness. Uh, he has his podcast. He had has um another uh guests like Jordan Peterson too, and
Really, he interviewed Jordan
yeah,
Peterson.
he's very deep too. He's pretty deep. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and he recorded the conversation, and then for the idea of midnight gospel, he just like a clip, for example, of a conversation, and then created
Yeah,
something,
animation.
an animation, right? But
Mhm.
when you listen to, you don't see the connection between what you are watching and what you are listening to, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel it too?
Yeah. At the beginning, it was a little bit strange because you watched the show, right? Midnight Gospel, and you understood everything. Like at the beginning, it was logical, but for like some moments, you were like, wait, something's unusual about this, right? Like, why do they
Yeah.
say that? Sometimes what they're saying is not completely connected with the animation, and sometimes it is. So you start thinking, wait, this seems like a conversation. And that's how I also investigated a little bit. And yeah, this guy has his website with all the complete interviews and everything. But I don't know, I watched the show and I said, damn, that's a lot of job, like a big job, a lot of work to make all that animation, right? And connect it
Mm.
with the stories, what type of stories, right? And it kept you like hooked on the show to see what happens next. But now that you mentioned that, I think that's just a new way, an innovative way of storytelling, right? And I was
Mm.
hearing an interview. I don't know if you saw a video Jordan Peterson posted on Instagram, that there was this podcast he has with his daughter, and they were talking about some controversial fact, right? Something like, oh, if like the more IQ you have, the more less the more divorces you have, something like that, right? But the thing
Yeah.
is that later, I don't know if you've seen this format on TikTok, that originally it was that one person sings and then another person sings with you on TikTok. But
Okay.
now they're doing that format with his videos, right? He has an interview, and now there are other people reacting to that video in that moment. So Jordan Peterson was commenting about that, and he was saying that's a completely new way of storytelling, of communication, right? Because it's only one-sided, right? It's not like a conversation like I can say something and you respond. It's just one
Hmm.
person grabbing what another person said and then adding something additional. So I
Yeah.
think with all these, like, there are new ways of telling stories that could be good or bad, right? We don't know what could happen.
Uh, I that reminded me what you said about that feature on TikTok that you can respond to another. That's similar to, for example, what you see on gaming, on YouTube. A lot of people playing or gaming, and there are a lot of people talking. Oh my god, he did that, he did that. Similar to sports too. So it's like a way of television, but broadcasting, like
Mhm.
broadcasting, but
Yeah, like
in
Twitch, right? The
form.
things that you see on Twitch.
Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting though.
But it's weird because at the beginning, I found it funny because it's like, why would you watch somebody play a video game if you could play the video game, right? Like, what's so entertaining about that? But
Mm,
later on, like, since we're adapting to those things, like, I guess our parents or our grandfathers also had trouble adapting to Facebook. We also have problems adapting to the new tendencies in the trends in TikTok. But then
mm,
I understood it, right? Because I consume something similar. Sometimes I see suggestions that there's this musician, right? This producer musician who sees videos that are like, for example, I don't know, the top 100 most listened to songs on Spotify, right? And I hear him listen to music and comment. So I was like, this is funny, right? Because in the past, I could say, why would you listen to a person, listen to music, if you could listen to music? So at the
mm.
beginning, it's always like unusual. There's always like the first adopters of that trend. But then I think you get used to it, right? Now I don't know, I see my uncle and my grandparents like watching those type of videos, and I'm like, that's interesting, right? They're getting
Ah,
adapted to those type of things.
it is. It is. My parents, for example, they are very digital. I think I don't know if they have TikTok. I don't think so,
Really?
but they have a better cell phone than me.
Yeah, that's the weird thing, right? Sometimes I
Right.
see like old people, right? And they have better cell phones than anybody just because they make a lot of money. They have like iPhone 12, like Samsung Galaxy.
Mm,
But now that you mentioned the TikTok thing, there's a lot of good content on TikTok, man. Like, for any type
it
of
is.
genre, if you're a music producer, if you're a lawyer, if you like politics, there's a lot of good content in that platform. I mean, you can learn anything. I was watching this video about this woman who's like a music teacher in one of these universities, Berkeley or one of those things, and she
Uh-huh.
gives you tips on how to write lyrics. And it's like 10 years ago, that would be crazy, right? I
Yeah.
can't pay a university in the United States for music. I would never know that information. Now there's like 1 minute and she teaches you something valuable.
You can say right now that you took a course on I don't know EDX, and you have the diploma of Harvard University, for example, and it costs you like $100 maybe,
Yeah.
and but you are from Harvard. Ah, yeah, I studied in Harvard, like Toledo,
Yeah.
in Stanford. No, in Stanford,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, like, just because it says Harvard or Stanford, you're like, oh, that's a lot of, like, that's important. That's a big deal.
this is weird. We are having troubles here. This says running out of time, but we are too. Why it is okay? We are back. How about if if we just take just this time to introduce you, because we were talking out so fast that it's funny, but And actually, I want to take advantage of that because we were talking about a lot about about marketing, and you're now finally a marketer too. Uh, so I don't know how has been this career, like professional career, versus the time you have put in your consulting time since the beginning, even without marketing knowledge, because you started doing it is just by your way, right? Like just YouTube and learning in the path, right?
Yeah, it's like a, we call that like a self thoughts, right? I thought myself, let's say, how to do these type of things, consulting. But it's kind of funny because I remember when I was studying, because I studied at the Institute Isil, a teacher was telling us, guys, like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, this major, right, this career didn't exist, right? Marketing didn't exist as something to study, right? Because it was something that people didn't pay attention to. Let's say publicists existed, right? They did publicity and those things. You had investigators, everything, but it was unusual to find somebody who studied marketing. And now I think that it's not the same, but I think it's almost, I wouldn't say impossible, but it's really hard to teach somebody marketing, because it's something like, that adapts so much and that changes so much, that it's like, unless your
Yeah,
university is very, very well, I don't know,
very
updated, and it
agile.
changes.
Yeah,
Exactly, very agile. And like, to have a university be agile, that's like
it's
asking
very
like the,
difficult.
it's
Yeah,
very, very
because
difficult.
they need the approbation of the minister and the government. So and you can change the curriculum like just like in 1 year. It's very difficult.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And now, like, now that I'm having doubts, because on one side I say, okay, I think it helped me, like studying those 3 years helped me get like a solid base on where to start. So I
Mm,
have these, let's say, classic conventional theory knowledge, like, I don't know, for aporte, those things, right? The background, studying cases, etc.
mm,
um and then maybe I taught myself the other things, like Facebook ads, Google ads, creating a website, that I didn't learn those things when I was studying. But then again, I say, I think I could have learned all that like in 1 year, like watching online courses, or like Udemy, Creana, those type of things.
yeah.
But this is the thing, there are two things that I think helped me a lot, and one is a little bit connected to what we're doing right now, because this is your first podcast in English, right?
All
I
right.
think English helped me a lot, like a whole lot, because for one thing, the cases or the examples or the things that the teachers wanted to talk about in class, I had already known about those things, because I don't know, I watched a video on the internet and it was in English.
Mhm.
And I don't know, it's a case study. How did Netflix beat Blockbuster, right? And the teacher showed it in the classroom. But like 2 months later, 3 months later, because they had to wait for the translation to use it in the classroom. And that's something that I think people don't pay attention to, how English can actually help you, not just to get your certificate, like your bachiller, like you're waiting for, right?
All right.
But to actually complement the information, right? You don't need English when you
Yeah,
finish your major. You need it before, actually, right?
yeah. It helps you a lot. I think, for example, it helped you to, it allowed you to learn faster because I always say this that most of the scientific knowledge, academic knowledge, and business knowledge comes from Europe or United States. So the first language you will see it in internet is in English. So there's a lot of different when you search in Spanish and when you search in English the same keyword. You may find content more related to your keyword and actually more like relevant to, because in Spanish there's more, I don't know, competitive, but uh, the webs are more like to just generate income, like just monetize. It's not just the, I don't know. You get me right, because you have seen it too.
Yeah, completely. I think one of the clearest examples of this is Wikipedia, right? You search for anything on Wikipedia, right? And you put it in Spanish, you have some information, right? Maybe some details. But if you put it on English, right, you have all the information. You have like twice as much as information as in Spanish. And that's just a small example on how you can have more information just for knowing English, right? Because sometimes people tell you, hey, yeah, you have to learn English so you can watch movies in English, you can listen to music in English. And yeah, that's fun, that's entertaining. But now if
Mm.
you're really dedicated to your major, you really want to be a professional, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be, I don't know, a teacher, if you want to be an engineer, you need English before you start studying, right? And that's the
Mm.
problem here in Peru. Most
Mm.
people don't know English when they finish school, right? They start learning English while they study at university or college or before, let's say. That's why IPNA, Británico, Católica, all of those things exist because they don't know English.
Yeah. And you work in that, right? In one of those.
Yeah, I'm working. I'm a teacher now for like 4 or 5 years at this language institute, and it's one of the biggest. I think it's the one that has most students, right? And it's very interesting because, like, I've
Mm.
had this idea, this business idea regarding teaching English for a long time, and I did my investigation, right? I'm a marketer, so I also have to investigate a little bit about the market.
Mhm.
And to make it simple, there's just not enough offer. There's too much demand. There's like this much demand in this
Really?
offer for English teachers. Yeah, and it's a big problem. Like since Ollanta Humala's government, right, our past
Uh-huh.
president here in Peru,
Uh-huh.
he had put the objective that in 2022, I don't remember, I read his plan. He wanted to make Peru as a bilingual country, right? Let's say like, I don't know, like Canada, right? In Canada, they speak English and French. I think almost everybody speaks English and French finishing their school. But the problem here in Peru was that we can't achieve that objective because there aren't enough teachers. And the teachers that we have aren't qualified. They don't know how to teach. And I can tell
Mm.
you that from like firsthand experience because I studied in a national school like the last year. And you can imagine, right? I entered to the English class of my school. The teacher wanted to teach English, and I just laughed, right? I just laughed because it was like at the other school, Nivela, they separate. That's Nivela's a little bit more advanced, let's say, to the other schools because they separate everybody depending
Mm.
on their level,
Yeah.
right? They say that's a little bit better because how are you going to teach the verb to be to somebody who maybe already has an intermediate level,
Yeah.
maybe the person studied the United States? That's crazy.
Yeah, I get you. Yes. Yes, it is. But how did you become a teacher, an English teacher? It's easy to do it. How many years it becomes to you?
Um, for me, it was very easy. I have to say, let's say I was privileged, if you want to call it like that way, because every time I when I used to teach like at the place, right, not online, I told my students that because they always think that I studied, I did the classic thing, right? They think, okay, you have to study 3 years English, then you have to prepare yourself, maybe study education, and
Mm.
then apply to be a teacher, and then you get accepted. And I told them, guys, I didn't study, let's say, English, right? Because I was so lucky that I lived in the United States with my grandmother. Um, I arrived there when I was like 6 years, I think, 6 years old. And I couldn't speak English at all, right? But the thing is that when you're young, right, between the ages, I don't know, under 10 years old, if you're 8, 7, you can absorb the language so easily just because of your context, right? If you speak to people,
That's
imagine,
interesting.
yeah, imagine like I was a kid, 6 years old. I wanted to play with my like partners, but I couldn't speak. So you start learning those small things, right? Like play, kick, etc. And watching TV, I don't know, Dora the Explorer, whatever. I had already learned the language. In fact, I learned the language so much that I didn't know how to write in Spanish. I was writing like in a mixer, let's say, with K and those C's. But the thing is that I just came here, to make it short, I just came here to Peru. I didn't know what to study. I didn't know what to do with my life. I didn't want to work as a waiter. And it's okay. I know English. That's a start, right? Maybe I could teach English. But here in Peru, you know that if you don't have a certificate or something, like I can tell you I know English, but how do you know, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
went to this language institute and I said, hey, I want to give an exam to say that I know English. And they told me, okay, but we also have this course that's called methodology, where we teach you how to teach, and then we give you a certificate. And I'm like, okay, so I have two options. I can get a certificate and just it says that I know English, or I
Mm-hmm.
can learn how to teach and I also get the certificate. So I took the course, and this is a funny story. Okay, I actually failed like two semesters, let's say, or 2 months of the course of methodology. I failed the class, right? They told me, no, you can't teach or things like that. But deep down, I knew that I was better than the whole class. Because
Mm.
right? You know who has the ability to like
It's
stand
the
up in
skill.
front. Yeah, it's the skill to stand up in front of 20 people, 20 kids or 20 adults, and not be intimidated, speak, be charismatic. And I knew I just failed because I had some problems and I couldn't concentrate, etc. But then the funny thing is, from like the 30 students we were, only like three of us actually became teachers. And of course, I was one of them. I just applied to the Language Institute like 2 times. I got it the second time, and that's it.
How
But
much
this is,
was the rate? How much was the rate? That's I want to know that
what do you mean the rate? The rate of what?
of professors that take the course that becomes professors that first take the course.
You mean how many people actually become teachers after the course?
Yes. Yes.
Like I told you, like it's actually 6 months you have to study. Normally, if you get the same students, it's like 30 students. Like I mentioned, from 30 students, only three became teachers.
Mm.
And out of those three, that's the funny thing, because okay, you can enter and become a teacher, but then you have 6 months or three, I believe, where they test you and they see if you're actually a good teacher. And if you don't pass. So from those three, I know
They
that
pay you?
one, yeah, they pay you, of course. Yeah, they have to pay you.
Mm.
But I know that one of them didn't pass, so there's only two. But this is the funny thing, and how I connected with the other topic I was telling you. Normally, you would expect, like in other countries, that a language teacher has also studied education, let's say, right?
Mm.
But when I entered, they didn't ask me for a major in education, right? In fact, I told them I'm not studying, and later I studied marketing. But that's the thing, since we don't have enough qualified teachers, they need the teachers. So what are they going to do if they need the teachers for the students? Because there are like millions of students who want to learn English. They just accept you, but that's the important thing. They have to prepare you. They give you webinars, they prepare
Trainer.
you workshops. So I learned how to teach without having to study education. Now I think they do ask for like your
Mm.
certificate that you're studying, but I entered when I didn't need those things. And it's a good job, it's a good job, right?
Yeah.
I
So
didn't have
so
to.
but it was before you studying at the university, right?
Yes,
You
yes.
were working first.
Yes, first I worked like, I worked as a restaurant, right? I was a cook, a chef, if you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started being a teacher, right? When I started being a teacher, then I could afford to study, right? Then I had the money, let's say, to live
Mm.
alone, to study. So yeah, like with just one basic ability, that's English, I had
Mm.
the opportunity, and I still have the opportunity to live alone, to pay for my studies, right? To pay for all
Yeah.
these extra things, cell phones, laptops, trips, etc.
For example, my roommate Rafael and a lot of his friends are interpreters, like Stean, for example. All right, and he only has a skill, right? And it's not just a difficult skill. Maybe if you are very old and you don't have the time, maybe, but as a regular person, it's not that difficult. If you are thinking in maybe I don't know, if you don't have so much chances to generate income well paid. I don't know, maybe if you don't have professional skills, but just with the language, with the language skill, you can do it.
Yeah, completely. Like like you say, it's like a hack, right? Like a shortcut.
Like a hack.
Because yeah, like what's the classic thing? Like if you don't have any ability, the classic thing is you have to like work your butt off like 5 years at one company, and then maybe you start escalating, etc. But with
Mm,
English, that automatically puts you on a level where you know more. And like I told you once, I think, yes, there's this possibility, okay, I can work as an interpreter, I can work as a teacher. But then again, if I know English, I can teach myself other abilities, right? Because you
mm,
can learn watching videos on YouTube. So yeah, it's like I think the reason is because now that we live in a globalized world where there's a lot of information, and like they say, information is power.
it is.
English helps you a lot with that, and that's something people I think underrate. People here in Peru don't understand the importance of English. They think like, maybe later, or
Mm,
that's only necessary to pass my major, right? I don't care. I don't want to live in the United States, but they're lost.
yeah. What do you think is your most favorite skill that you have learned through life? You will say English. Is it English?
My favorite skill, not necessarily. I mean, I owe a lot to English, right? Like I'm thankful because that happened to me. If and I sometimes I think, right, what would have been of my life if I hadn't gone to the United States and learned English? Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'd be at a restaurant, right? But
Mm,
it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite because it's like, okay, yeah, I know how to do it, but I have fun with other things. My favorite ability, if and I don't know if it's an ability, I think I told you once, it's like um being a doer, right? Or doing something. Because I think
yeah.
there's a name I tried to look for it. I don't know if it exists, but it's like an ideator, right? Like from ideator, a
Mm-hmm.
person who creates an idea and is able to execute it, right? Because anybody can
Mm,
have a good idea, but few people execute those ideas and know how to execute it and when to execute it. So that's what I like. That's my favorite. Let's say if I,
that's an
like if I
interesting
had
skill. That's an interesting skill. Like the mix of having that skill to create, to choose an idea and then work on it and then finally become it true, like an artist for example, right? But it is skill, it is a skill when you apply it, for example, and even doing, I don't know, marketing ideas or businesses or anything. Just for example, like the, what was the name of your last channel on Instagram?
shot the perspectiva, right?
Show
Shot
the
of
perspective.
perspective. Yeah.
How what's about that? I like the format, but I don't know. It was funny to see you too in the. I mean, it's like another, the other face of the moon. Like in when you see a Brian in talk shop, that is more like in a open space, right? And the other one is in a more like reflecting way about stuff about life, and you sure try to share a little bit of wisdom in tiny small pills, right? Like 1 hour. I don't know how long it was.
No, no, it's very short. That's why I wanted to be like something small, like, well, technically small because it's 10 minutes. For me, 10 minutes is small, but for like
Yeah, but
anybody
on
on the internet,
Instagram,
it's like, what,
yeah,
10
yeah,
minutes is a movie, man.
yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because like I told you, I really like this ability that if I just get a lot of ideas, like a lot of ideas, but I don't execute on all of them, which you have to know which one to execute. But I like bringing them down and executing them and seeing how I'm able to actually solve these problems that you're going to find. I started first with this podcast, Talk Shop, right? That
Mm.
I thought it was a little bit maybe easier because the spotlight wasn't on me, right? I wasn't the only person that was going to appear. It was just this idea of having some friends, some beers, and speaking about a lot of things. Because I thought that we were, I don't know if funny, but we gave interesting opinions. Then with Shot de
Yeah,
Perspectiva, it was like you said, this completely different Brian, if you want to call it, right? The Brian in
yeah.
Talk Shop was
Another face,
okay. Yeah, it's
just
another
another.
face. Yeah, and maybe I think it was related also to my own story, let's say, because at the beginning I was like, okay, yes, I value friends, I value good times, interesting questions, controversy. But now when I was in Chota Perspectiva, I was like, I was at a time where I had learned a lot of things, right? And I think you were a witness to that. I had learned a lot of
Yeah.
things, and I was just so excited to show those things and teach those things to other people, because maybe I told a friend about an advice I read in a book, I told an experience, and then they came back and told me, hey Brian, what you told me helped me a lot. So
Mm.
I was like, if just one advice, one tip from a book helped one person, how about we give it to more people, right? And what's interesting about that, because at the beginning I didn't have any objective. It wasn't like I want these many subscribers, or I want to be famous, or I want money. It was just, I just want to do. That's why I told you
Mm.
the abilities of
Yeah,
doing.
dude,
And then,
that's funny.
funny enough, I learned, I did have an objective that was like, I mean, I had some things I learned about it, the experience of knowing how to create content on the internet, right? How to
Mm.
run an ad, maybe how important branding is, right? With the color, the palettes, how to upload a story, what time to upload a story, right?
Mm.
Um, and those are the things that later, when I had to apply my marketing knowledge with companies, helped me a lot, because let's say I had already tried with my projects with TalkShop and Shopify, and then when I had to do it with a company, I already had that experience, right? So it was like I killed two birds with one shot, right? It was fun for me. I learned something. Now I'm actually thinking about reviving one of those projects, because it's very fun, very, very fun.
It is. It is. It is. What did you enjoy most?
From both of them or from which one?
Each one maybe, because I think both were a great projects.
From Talk Shop, I really enjoyed, of course, having like so much fun with my friends. And after recording, we still had like a reunion, and we kept talking and drank. You were there, right? We were still speaking, and I met a lot of new people. I really met a lot
Yeah.
of new people, because, for example, if I wanted to talk about, I don't know, music or fashion, I maybe had two friends that knew about fashion, but I
Yes.
needed more. So maybe they got new. But with Shot de Perspectiva, what I really liked about Shot de Perspectiva is that people who maybe I didn't speak to a lot, or people who I didn't even know, right? There were people from Argentina or Colombia who sometimes left a comment, told me that the content gave them great value. And when I had these workshops or these webinars, I
Mm.
was surprised that people actually dedicated their time on a Sunday, let's say,
Do
to
you
log
remember?
in. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, they logged in and they were excited and they were thankful, and they received there was a message I saw like 2 weeks ago, something like, of course, in Spanish. I said, show de perspectiva, ¿qué pasó contigo? ¿Te dio COVID? Like,
Ah.
come back. And I was like, it was fun. It was really, really fun. So that's what I'm thinking about,
That's love.
getting back to it.
That's love. It's very, like, for me it's very meaningful when you receive the, you know, that at the back, I think we both share this in common, that we are more driven to purpose, right? So we do it just because of that. It's not just because our final end is just to become rich, or I don't know, or likes, or something. It's just to provide value and just and also enjoy the process of creating stuff. And when someone tells you, hey, that what you said or what you wrote, it helps me, it helped me a lot. It's very, it's very touching, right? Because you know, it depends on you, if how much one do you want to ask or imagine how much help. But I think in any measurement, help is help. So you're always helping someone, right?
Yeah, it's strange because, um, like, it hasn't been easy either, right? Because sometimes, and I think maybe you've encountered this problem, is that especially in this genre, let's say, of self-help, it's very difficult to put yourself there online, speak, because you got a lot of things in your head saying, what do you know about life, right? Who do
Mm.
you think you are, right? Like, why are you giving advice, right? You're young, right? What do you know about these things? And
Yeah. What do
of
you
course,
know
when I
about
was
life?
yeah, what do you know about life, right? You're just a
Yeah.
kid, man. You're like, you don't have kids, you don't have a family.
Said by a
But
30
then
old man.
yeah, but when somebody comes and tells you, hey, what you did helped me a lot, it's like, okay, maybe I'm not perfect, maybe I'm not Gandhi, right? Maybe I'm not like illuminated, I'm not
Mm.
Buddha, but there's a small like lesson or tip that helped another person, and that for me it's like just enough. That's like fun, like you said. It's we don't do it for the money. And that's, I don't know if you've noticed this, maybe you have friends that told you something similar, but that's something that I think many people miss, that they first put the objective like, okay, I want to make a lot of money, and they start looking and they teach themselves. They go to conferences, they read Robert Kiyosaki, Jürgen Klarik, right? They go to
Mm.
conferences and they have the only objective to make money. And I'm not saying that's bad, but sometimes they even get into something that gives them money, maybe, but it's not something that they like or makes them happy. Like these
Yeah.
people
Because you
studying.
become a fake. People will see that. Not always actually, but but I don't know. There are a lot of people that just jails people and why they are not better. It's just on your head.
Yeah,
So maybe deep down, maybe they do want to help, but they don't know they are sometimes making more hurt than than help.
yeah, there's like a fine line where the classic debate, right, between coaching and psychologists, right?
Mm.
Like I think coaching is more directed to people who maybe need tactics or specific advice on how to do something better, right? It could be habits they want to change, a business they want to create. But a psychologist, he has a more profound job, right? To know something more, something deeper, let's say, of that person. Maybe the person is not accomplishing his dream because he's lazy, or he's, I don't know, lazy. That's the only thing I can think of.
Hmm.
Maybe he's not doing it because he has a big problem, a deeper problem, a trauma, or something around his family or context. But
Yeah.
people don't know that difference. They think that everything is because like poverty is in your head, right? You have to change your mind. It's like, that's stupid.
Yeah. It's a that's a very like important talk about in my life right now because I started, as you know, as I told you, to study coaching just by myself first.
Hmm.
um it's very easy if you are I consider myself pretty good like searching on English and on internet and finding good quality content. Okay, so I started to see that there's no like a deep theory of coaching behind what they do, and there's so that means that there's a lack of definition about what coaching means. Right now I find I'm joyful, I'm happy to say that I actually find an interesting theory, the first one. Maybe there are a lot of them, but in my pursuit to define coaching, I find a book called No Directive Coaching. Is actually it is in Spanish because it's from a Spanish coach called Leonardo Rabiera, and is coaching no directivo. And it's very interesting because the main point first is to define what it is coaching and how it's that different from mentoring, from consulting, or any other type of helping businesses, because they are helping. It's not the difference is in the methodology, right? And mythology, because consulting is like I have the solution and I provide that solution for you because you don't have time and you want that value because you don't have that skill too. Okay, the difference in mentoring is like I want to do it, I don't want to pay you to do it because, for example, I don't know, you can consult someone in your life because you will always apply it in your life. You know, you get me.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you have to do it. Anyone
yeah,
will change your mind if you don't do it, right?
yeah. Mhm.
So that's mentoring, and the last one is coaching, and this is the part where I am excited about the definition. It is that it's not directive. It's not directive means that it's a type of it's similar to mentoring, but the difference is that the type of product that you bring to your client. In mentoring, you're providing explicit knowledge. Explicit knowledge is the kind of knowledge that you can learn through words, through understanding, uh, through any type of sense. But implicit knowledge is something more like insight, like you only learn it through life, through experience, like biking, like learning how to bike. You can read that. You can read that. You can read that. You can listen to podcasts of how to ride a bike, but you won't, even if you don't use the bicycle and try to run and try to ride for yourself, and then go and learn through trial and error. So that's the difference in coaching. The product is that it's a service in which you learn through yourself because it's a service of self knowledge, uh, guided by this person that is trying to provide you two skills. The first one is the Socratic. What is the meaning of this?
Method.
Yeah, Socratic method, and the other one is the ability of the window, because the name is espejo. Let's just
Yeah, the
translate
mirror.
the mirror effect. Yeah, the mirror.
Mhm.
So the mirror means that I am trying uh, to just give you back what you are saying, not exactly in your words, but there's well, this is the part when you have to study how to do it properly. I am in that way, but that's the definition of mirror, trying to tell you things that are not from my perspective. That's what I am mirrored, that what you are saying, and that's the skill. So I won't transfer to you any explicit knowledge, and the more the better. The more you try to not give explicit knowledge, because if you do that, you don't allow the coachee to learn through themselves, because they have to know the answer,
Mhm.
because that's the point, that's the service. It's like Socratic method do, the mayeutica. It
Mhm.
is the skill to ask people, and ask until people realize that they are ignorant about that, and then that's the point when they started to look for it through, because they first need to know that they are ignorant about it, and then look for an option, and then that's the shift in coaching.
It's very interesting because you reminded me of once I was reading the Jordan Peterson book, and there's a part where he talks about this skill, right? This ability on like what you call the mirror face, I believe.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's basically paraphrasing what the person has said, but not with the exact words, right? It's like not your interpretation, but it's like what it's basically like you said, a mirror, right? You repeat what the
Yeah.
other person said, but with different words. And of course, you have to try to be objective, right? Not add anything from your beliefs, because sometimes they use this tool for something wrong, right? For
Right.
example, I don't know, if you tell me like, hey, I think people, maybe you tell me, hey, people who are tall play basketball better, right? And I say, oh, okay, so what you're telling me is that short people can never play basketball? And like,
Right. Yeah.
no, right? You're not telling me that. You're telling me, okay, you're telling me that some people have better physical qualities that help them play basketball, right?
Yeah.
Because, like you said, people can use that ability for, let's say, wrong objectives. But if you use it like wisely, that can help you a lot. And one first step that Peterson mentioned that is very important for this is that you have to listen to somebody, right? Listen to a person very well. And
Mm,
as you were telling me these type of things, I was just I don't know, a fast idea came to me that, do you think maybe like people who have these let's say requirements where they need a coach are just people who maybe haven't had good friends, right? Because I think if you're a person who has a lot of good friends who listen to you, right, who give you
mm,
advice, and that's the difficult part. Like, that's something I noticed with everybody. Every time you talk to somebody, they always want to describe reality based on their terms, and they want to give opinions based on their terms. And when
mm,
you give them factual information, like for example, Andres, for example, our friend Andres, he usually gives factual information, like something like, most people, I don't know, I'm just gonna invent something, right? Okay, most people who, I don't know, play sports are usually better at playing instruments, right? And somebody always comes to you and says, no, but I have a friend who plays sports, but he's bad at playing the instrument. And that's something frequent that I found amongst people. Like, but no, I have a friend, right? And they always
mm,
try to relate their reality based on what they have perceived. No, no, my friend, the other people, and they can't think outside the box. So I'm guessing it's very difficult to apply that method of coaching, like you said, forgetting about your own experiences, about your own knowledge, and trying to
mm.
reflect exactly what the person told you, right?
That's pretty deep. It's very deep because if you like extend this perspective of um, getting outside of your own window, when you look through your eyes, through your own lenses, and you start to see him through the lenses of like the your Harry's window, right?
Mm,
It's very difficult, but I think it's a practice. I don't know if it is something you just like develop just like a muscle. I think it's more something that you constantly do to try to be in that way. For example, I don't know, imagine if you are uh, um, overstimulated with a lot of stimulation. um, it's very difficult to be on self, do you know, because it will you are going to be annoyed, you're going to be maybe a little bit anxious too, because you have a lot of stimulation. But when you, for example, you are that's the reason when you are when you are in nature, uh, you feel more calm, more center, because you are like in a space very different where when you start to gain different perspectives. And that also happened when you travel a lot of time, like 1 year 2 years, maybe you start to see yourself very different because you have like have a change very strong in your life, like living in with a lot of people surround you, like the cultural perspectives, I don't know, like cultural sub reality of how things work. You will see that that life is very different when you, for example, are in very different cultures, like India, like Japan. So it's very weird how we change our mind when we like get out of our own way, you know.
yeah, that's I guess that's like you can break that ability into two parts, right? On one side, you need to have the ability to suppress and eliminate any judgmental thoughts that you have, right? And one of the clear examples of that is like people who are very, very religious, right? People who are very religious, if you tell them, hey, I went and I had sex with my friend, they're like, what? You had sex with a person who you're not married to? And they start judging you, right? So they
Mm,
actually they can't listen to you profoundly. So that's one side, like I told you, suppressing your own
your
personal
own,
judgment. But
yeah.
like you said, apart from
And
that, you also have
that's
to
that's a big
imagine.
step yet. And even that first step is very difficult. It's very very difficult.
That's hard, and people don't want to admit it because normally you don't see that part of yourself. Like
Your
everybody
inner
says,
critic.
yeah, everybody says, no, I'm not judgmental. I'm open minded, right? I can think about everything, but there's always something where people start being like, oh wait. I can't accept
Hey,
that, right? Right?
relax,
Oh,
relax,
you're
bro.
relaxing, right? Because, but then there's the other thing, like you mentioned, right? Apart from suppressing your own judgmental thoughts, you also have to learn how maybe another person is taking a look at this, right? It's not only eliminating your own thoughts, it's learning what other people may think from other cultures. And that's something you learn from traveling, etc. And I think that's a way of being empathic, right? Empathy, right? You
Yeah.
can only imagine, like the ability to imagine what another person with other ideas and other thoughts can feel in that moment. And that's even harder than the first step, I guess.
I imagine that this maybe has to do a lot about introspection, right? Because you have to first start to, before you start to listen to yourself, you first have to know that there's something there, that you are not just your own thoughts, right? Because you have to be aware that more, you are more than what you said, right? You have like, you are more complex um, experience, right? Do you get me with that?
Yeah. It's like one step further. Like I don't know. I think once we talked about this, like if there's a thought that flows through your head, I don't know, maybe you're drunk or something. It says, "Hey, push that person," or "Hey, kill that
Yeah.
person," and you're like, "Am I thinking that? Like, is my brain telling me to kill a person? Maybe I'm a serial killer. Maybe I'm crazy." And you start
Mm.
overthinking about these thoughts.
Yes.
But then,
Yeah.
like you said, you discover like you are not everything that comes in your head, right? Like your
Mm.
head is just a machine of ideas, and everything that comes out of it, that's not you. Your brain can tell you, hey, go and kick that puppy, but maybe that's not you. You don't want to do that. It's just a
Yes.
crazy idea that maybe you saw a movie or maybe you saw this and you have that idea, but that's not you.
Mm. Yeah, it's a meta skill. It's a cognitive, metacognitive skill that you learn. Maybe I don't know. Maybe they have a lot of different ways to learn that, but a good way is practice mindfulness, for example, because you start to see, and it's a very good way to do it, because you will always see that there's more than just your thoughts, but also your emotions. When you start to know what feels, what it is to feel like different emotions, and in different circumstances. For example, when you are anxious, when you
Hmm.
are with fear, when you are like resentful, you start to see that, okay, for example, it helps me a lot of me, for example, because I first listen my body and then listen my thoughts. I first think, okay, I won't interpret my thoughts if I don't see how I feeling right now. For example, if I am feeling a lot of different things, but I am feeling like relaxed, so I will trust these ideas. But if I am feeling like anxious, I am feeling like fearful, I have fear, and I that's the moment when I will stop and say, okay, I'm feeling this way, and I start to like be mindful of what I am feeling, and if I am able to handle with that. Okay, keep
So
going.
I think what you're mentioning is something related a lot to therapy, right? I related a lot to my experience going to therapy because I found it very interesting when I started going to therapy. And the reason I started going to is I knew I wanted to go, right? I was very curious, but there was this moment where I actually had a panic attack, right? An anxiety attack. It was a day that, like, all the morning, I felt my heart going boom, 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 and it couldn't stop. I had to go to the hospital and everything. And they told me, you don't have anything. Right? I thought it could be a heart. No, you don't have anything. Just go to the psychologist. And I was like, oh, okay. So finally, I'll go. And at one point at the beginning, very early in therapy, I thought that it was because maybe there was something wrong in me, right? And that's something people get the impression of, right? If you go to psychologists because something's wrong with you or something's
Mm,
broken in you, right?
mm,
But then my psychologist told me, hey, first of all, having anxiety is totally normal, right? It's a tool actually that our body has developed to let us know when we're in let's say a situation that's dangerous, or it's like the fight or flight system, right?
mm,
And that started to help me think like, okay, so I'm not broken. There's not something wrong with me. And actually, this is something good, something I have to listen to. And when I feel this way, it's because my body, like you're saying, is telling me something. So now
something.
I have to learn what that is, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It is very like meaningful the moment when you start to learn about this the way we work. Sometimes it's I don't like for example, remember when we were talking about what do you know about life. Okay, so that's a different thing when you say, well, I know a little bit more about humans, right? Because life is more different. Life is like it's even a metaphorical question. I don't know, because what's life? But a question about what humans are, it's more easy, because even that we are complex, very complex, we are animals. We are very similar to a specific animals, like mammals. um, this particular thing, anxiety, it is very common in every mammals is right, then the names right in English.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Mammals.
no, mammals, yeah, mammals, yeah, it's very common, it's very common. And you learn like okay, it's just not an idea, it's it's true, right? It's science.
Yeah.
It's true. That's how it's like. You ask, I don't know how can we like help people without killing with a knife, using an intervention for a surgery, because we know how things work. So there are a lot
Yeah.
of things that we know about the mind, and are not ideas. It's not like okay, anxiety is just it's in your mind. Okay. So it's like
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is that yeah, it's very interesting because we humans have something that make us totally unique, right? That's, I guess you can call it consciousness, right? We can be conscious of our ideas, and
mm,
that's like something that helped us be different from animals, right? We can create airplanes, we can go to the moon, we can speak, society, everything, and the animals can't.
mm,
But that doesn't take away what you said, right? We are still animals, right? We have many things that are adopted from like evolution.
for
And
evolution, yeah.
the only thing is that we are in a different context because now we have technology, globalization, etc., societies, but we still have a lot of the conducts that we used to have when we were animals. And that's what people forget. People think,
Mm.
no, that's crazy. There are people who still think that since it's the theory of evolution, they still think it's a theory, it's
Yeah.
not something real. But it totally is, man. Like, just
It
read a book.
totally. Yeah, yes, it is. It is. For example, or you can read actually history too. When I read *Sapiens* from
Oh
Yuval,
yeah.
it just changed my life. It's not that deep about biology or cognitive, or I don't know, neuroscience, but it tells you a broad perspective about humans since we were another species. For example, like having having this idea of that in a moment in life there were two humans in life, like we were living with more humans, like very similar, but yet not that similar too. So imagine that, like us, it sounds like aliens, but it
Yeah.
happened. It happened millions of years ago. It happened. So we can just like pretend that we know a lot of right now, but we can just lose ourselves forgetting the complexity of how have we do to be here, how much society how many steps have we do.
Yeah, I also really like that book because, like you mentioned, it's like the odds of us being the ones who adapted and who survived is like crazy. Like, because you would think, right? They were talking about in a part of a book that why there was like another type of humans. I don't remember which Homo it was,
Mm.
but they had a bigger brain, right? And they were, why didn't these guys with bigger brains, right? Like beat us? Why didn't they survive and we got extincted? Well, it was basically because if you have a bigger brain, that consumes also more energy, right? And getting energy means getting more food. So when there was like scarcity, right, when there wasn't a lot of food, they
Yeah.
died first and we didn't die first. So it's like, it's very crazy. Like you said, it opens your mind a little bit more, and understanding that you are not this, so yeah, like semi-god thing, that you are better than a dog, or like you are like totally different. Like you're just an animal with more steps, right, with more instructions. You're just an advanced model.
Yeah.
And
If
tell me, tell me.
if you're gonna go, if you want to go deep, we can talk about free will.
Free will. You mean that if it exists?
If it exists, right?
Right.
And
What I was
we
thinking
are
about, like, yeah, tell
we're
me.
we're created through determinism, so everything is it's horrible. This I remember when Andres told me that yes, it is like probably deterministic what who is going to kill, who is going to be success. Is like if in the case of free will, and imagine we have all the variables physics theoretically, we can do that. It's not like it's not like what is the name of when you like see the future?
Predicting.
Yeah, you're not predicting the future, but you are like you're understanding better, right?
Yeah, I also remember when we had that conversation with Andres, that, and I saw a video recently also about this other guy who was like, people thinking that if you flip a coin, right, you flip a coin and say, oh, heads or tails, that it's like random, right? But actually it's not random, right? If you had the variables, if you had the speed, let's say, or the force which you throw at a coin, you can know which side, let's say, it's gonna drop on. So let's say if you could know, like you mentioned, all the variables with everybody, right? You could know what's going to happen. So let's say, in a sense, we already know if you are going to like be successful, if you are going to have a child or not. There's a probability, right?
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's very disappointing if you take a look at that perception, because it's like, okay, so what should I do, right? What should I do if
Everything is set. Everything is set.
everything is set exactly,
Yeah.
right? So it doesn't matter what you're going to do. But then again, um it's a little bit weird, because that doesn't matter either, because there's a movie I saw with Nicolas Cage. I don't remember what's the name, but apparently he can see the future, right? He has these dreams or these things where he can see the
I saw
future.
it. Yeah, I saw
Yeah,
it.
it's great. I love it. But every time he sees the future, it changes, right? So
Mm,
it's like it doesn't work, right? Because you saw the future, so now you're gonna do something to change it. And the same thing here
the
applies here, I think. If we were able to see these variables and see if you are going to be famous or not, if you are going to be a millionaire or not, if you saw that, then you would change your actions maybe, right? And that
mm,
changes completely the outcome. But now, what I do think, I mean, I wouldn't spend too much of my time overthinking about that or getting sad about that, because at least we have the perception of free will,
yeah.
right? We have
Yeah,
the perception of free will. And if we have the perception, then I guess that's everything we need, because we were talking a moment ago, like the difference between us and animals. And I think sometimes people forget, and they easily forget, that we're just another piece of like meats and organs and systems. And that's why recently when I read this book, what's the Myth of Sisyphus from Albert Camus,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
like I really connected with his ideas, with his thoughts, that life is pointless. There's no meaning of life. It's just like an ant asking itself, like, hey, what's the meaning? Like, nothing. You're just a fucking ant, right? Maybe somebody is gonna come and step on you, and that's it. But
Mm.
at least in this moment, that you have the perception of free will, that you can do whatever you want to do, try doing something you like, right? Try doing something that at least will make you say, hey, I died, whatever, but I did something fun, right? That's the
That's
only thing I
interesting.
can think of.
That's interesting because, for example, I think I see that two moments. The first moment is when you realize that life is meaningless, And the second is, so what do you choose? What do you want to, so the moment you realize what do you want to do? And that reminds me that there were three definitions, right? Decisions,
Three
options,
options.
three options.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love
right.
it. Yeah, I don't know if you remember. It's kind of interesting how I got interested in that topic because I was watching this series that I totally love. That's BoJack Horseman, and then
Uh-huh.
I saw this video on YouTube that was like an analysis of the series and how it was connected to existentialism, right? In Albert Camus' ideas, and like you
Mm.
mentioned, he gives you three options, right? In a moment where you notice that life doesn't have a meaning, there's no God, we don't have a purpose, we weren't created for something, we were just created out of nowhere,
Mm.
you have three options. The first one is you kill yourself, right? Just kill yourself, right? Because if life doesn't have any meaning, why live, right? It's just suffering, kill yourself. The second
Mm.
one is you can distract yourself, right? Just distract yourself with, I don't know, TV, food, drugs, whatever. And there's a character on the series BoJack Horseman that's called Mr. Peanut Butter. And there's a
Yeah.
specific series where he says, "Hey, Joanne, relax. Life is
Yeah, yeah.
pointless, right? just have a
uh, uh,
beer. Like we're just gonna die. We're just
yeah, I was
animals
in
on a
it.
rock." And the third one, that's let's say the one that one would hope you choose is that you accept this meaningless, right? And like he says in the myth, it's just like like a god who sent this person Sisyphus
Mhm.
to roll a rock over a hill, and every day the rock is gonna fall and fall again, and he has to push that rock, and it's
Yeah.
like again every day, and that's life, right? You're just gonna do the same thing again and again. There's no point for this, no objective, nothing's gonna change. But the only thing you can do, like you said, is you can kill yourself, distract yourself, or accept it. And once you accept it, it's like it doesn't make it easier. It doesn't make it easier at all because you're still gonna get sad when a family member dies, when somebody doesn't love you. You're still gonna feel those things, but at least you're gonna know that that's life, right? That's it. That it's
Mm.
not because God wants you to know a message. It's not because, oh, you're gonna suffer and then you're gonna go to heaven. No, that's just life. Everybody gets that. And if you want to enjoy the happy things, you also have to enjoy the bad things.
What do you
That's it.
think? What do you think Camus thought the moment he was dying? A minute before he was dying.
I think he fucking laughed. You know why? You
Why?
know why? Because I don't know if you know how he died. Um, he died in a car crash, right? His
Mm.
friend found him in a station, like a bus station or whatever, and they were driving. They crashed against the wall, and then when they
Mm.
were investigating everything, they found a train ticket on Camus' pocket. So he was actually going to take the train. He had already bought the train ticket, and if he would have gotten into the train, he would still be alive in that moment. But he
Fuck.
decided in the last moment to go with his friend, and he fucking crashed and fucking died. So that's how absurd his
It's life.
death, yeah, his life and his death and everything was. That's life. You make one
That's
decision
life.
and anything can happen.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. Or uh, if you try hard, but again, that's life and that's nature, and maybe there are and there's culture too. So for humans, it's more difficult to just accept that idea when you see very difference in culture. Like it's not just difference that you were born with, I don't know, letter skills, cognitive skills, or lesser. I don't know. You have a problem, but not only that. Now you were born perfectly fine, but you are poor. So you won't have the same options as a rich guy, because it depends on how much poor you are. It may cause you better, it may cause you more difficult. So for example, I think that's poor difference, like a poor in United States and a poor guy in Peru. It's far more difficult because the state it, the state even it can see and search and help a lot of people in the real poorest cities in Peru. So that's very difficult. You won't change that perspective because that's money that it's evolved. It's like a new variable in different than any humans. It's not just evolution through who wins through killing, and also right now is who has the money to survive.
Yeah, and if you think a little bit about it, that problem, right? Like when you're born, you don't know the odds if you're gonna have it in easy. Let's say if you're born in a first world country like the US, or in
Mm,
hard if you're born in Africa. Like it's the consequence, I think, of again thinking that we are better than something or any other species, because I think we talked about this once, where many of these problems are a consequence because we think we're better than the rest of the animals, and we deserve rights, like everybody should have a right to live. And I'm not
mm,
saying we don't, right? I don't want to say no, nobody has the right to live, come and kill me and everything, but it is a good exercise, I think, to think and rethink why we're giving everybody the right to live, because that's what is making, let's say, the whole ecosystem change, right? It's paradoxical, and I don't want to say that anybody that nobody has the right to live, but it's funny, right? Because there's right now a trend where people say, hey, we have to be eco-friendly, you have to think about the
yeah.
products, that they don't just on animals, the yeah environments. Okay, do you know that actually most of these problems are caused because we're giving the right for everybody to live, in other words, saying that we are better than other animals and that we can kill anybody.
Mm,
And I'm not saying that it's not, but I think everything, like the whole political things, that I don't like talking about those things, it's very controversial, but that idea that okay, everybody has the right to live, to have children, those things, it's surprising and it's crazy how those are the consequences of our thoughts, right? Of thinking that we're better than other
mm.
animals. And it's, yeah, it's, I wouldn't change it. I mean, it's difficult because that would mean that, I don't know, maybe we're
Yes.
just 100 people on the planet, but it's interesting to think
It's
about that.
interesting, yeah, because I think at the end is maybe an ethical question, right? Because it is philosophical, the question that why we deserve to live, why we all
Mhm.
deserve to live. Well, you can say maybe because if we choose to live together, maybe we can help us, we can help all other, right? And we all have more chances to live well. And that's humanism, right? Because humanism is the belief of that everyone should live, and we believe that helping anyone and others, we will grow a society and everyone will be happy. Okay,
Mhm.
so but okay, it's a great rule and it's a great belief, but you don't have to forget that it's a belief too. It's not based on how actually life works, because for example, you're taking this decision, but you are also misleading the consequences of doing that. Because if you are saying that, you will know that obviously there are going to be consequences, like for example resources, as you said. If you think that everyone has deserves to live, so you need more, like, and this is the paradox of Yuval in agriculture, when we think that okay, doing this decision we will be better, but we forgot, and this history tell us that those decisions of trying to be more like, um, comfortable about our resources make us the need for more, and the need for more creates more complexity. And that's the way, because why we now have that level of complexity in our lives. We have states, we have norms, we have religion. So all of that, we don't have to just forget that are ideas, right?
Yeah.
they work, but they are ideas too. Like that's that's something tricky.
Yeah, it just started like with that belief that we're better, we deserve more. Maybe again with the idea that we have a purpose, right? Oh yeah, humans have a purpose. That we have come to save the world, and we think that we can control nature, and maybe yeah, we can. Like Peterson in a part of his book said, okay, we it's very hard to define what's the purpose of life, but you can start like wanting to reduce suffering, right? Because we suffer, people suffer, so maybe that's a good start, right? We can start by reducing suffering. But again, we're reducing suffering for us humans, right? Not for animals, because reducing suffering for humans is giving more suffering to animals. And again, like we said, we wouldn't change that. But what I found interesting when this whole pandemic thing and the COVID thing started is that it's just like a wake up call to remind you, hey,
Mm.
we're not that special after all. We are very vulnerable to nature, right? There's this comedian called, what's the name of, Carling? I don't know. I don't remember, George Carling, I think, where he made this show. He's very controversial about people who like to save the planet. And just to make it short, because the video is very very funny, you can watch the completed video.
Mhm.
He's like, he says like, fuck those people who say that save the planet. The planet doesn't need saving. The planet has been here millions and millions of years, right? um you know who needs saving? Humans, because we are, let's say, victims to volcanoes, to hurricanes, to earthquakes, etc. And the most probable thing that's going to happen, yes, we humans have contaminated the planet and whatever, all the things that you can think of,
Mm.
but maybe we're gonna just grow extinct like the dinosaurs, and the planet is gonna evolve again to adapt to all the plastic that we have created and everything. The planet is a self regenerating organism, right? It can
Yeah.
adapt itself. Like we humans adapt ourselves to a virus. Like if we have the cold or something, we adapt, create antibodies and destroy it. Maybe the planet is also creating antiviruses, antibodies, and destroying us with COVID, right? And COVID is just reminding us that we're just humans, we're just a piece of meat. And it's
Yeah.
scary. It's scary because maybe we'll just be extinct in like 1,000 more years, and that's it. That's it. Humanity. We're not that special.
I remember that at a time when I did a post about the pandemic, and I searched, and I didn't know that, but there are like four things that may cause extinction, human extinction, or well, life extinction in general.
Really.
Um, and and the first one, or in the top five, was pandemic. It was very probable because it's nature, and there are a lot of viruses around there that we don't know. So it's very probable that in some time, millions of those will catch up one day, like today, the pandemic, COVID-19.
Yeah, like I mean, Bill Gates warned us about this. Like he had those videos telling us the problem, and there's it's funny as fuck how people, just because he was talking about the pandemic, think that he is the person who started this. What the, like what the fuck? Like
Yeah.
no, he is the person who wants to put chips on us, and it's crazy. But while we were talking about this, I was thinking that it could go either way. It could go like, yes, maybe we become extinct because of the COVID, and that's it, and fuck it. Or like this idea that humans deserve like the right to live.
Mm,
Where do you draw the line, right? Like because for example, I'm sure you've heard of Neuralink from Elon Musk, where
yeah.
he's trying to adapt prostheses like for humans, right? Arms, legs, brain chips. I think he put a chip on a pig's head, whatever. What
Mhm.
happens when there's like people who are like kind of cyborgs, right? Do they also
Yeah.
deserve
That's a
that?
great
Like
question.
there's
That's a
gonna
great
come a
question.
part where there's a robot half human, half whatever, and that's like, okay,
I
what's the point?
I actually interviewed a friend called Piero that he's very into that. It's called transhumanism. Have you ever heard about that?
No, no, no.
Transhumanism talks about all the consequences. This is like a group of thought, like because it's not just like um, a specific thing. It's just a group of thoughts about leading evolution, humans leading evolution. So not nature leading evolution, humans
Hmm.
leading evolution. So that's the way, the path to become a transhumans. Transhumanism means that we can now set the north first, because we can use the technology, but why are you going to do it? That's the question. So it's very philosophical, because, for example, you have questions like cyborgs. How are you going to draw the line when you create conscious life, for example? um, it's very like futuristic too, but it's not that big, like it's not that difficult to see that in maybe no more than 200 years. But how are you going to draw the line when you have like Sophia, the first AI person in the world, um, and maybe he's starting to develop feelings. He's going to start to suffering, and I
Hmm.
know a lot of people will feel like empathy, and
Yeah, of course.
and
Uh,
there's create a new way of thinking, right? How is this? Can we kill um, artificial consciousness? if
Yeah,
if
right.
they feel, if they are very conscious, they feel like us. They are like us, only that they don't have our body. They are like machines.
Yeah, yeah, like there's gonna be a whole lot of questions there, right? Like, if like, can you get married with an AI robot, right? Like the Black Mirror episode where
Mm.
this girl marries well, where her husband dies, and like they grab all the information from his Facebook and all the chats, and they
Ah,
create a robot with all that consciousness. But
horrible.
um yeah, it's gonna be a very interesting question, because like I told you once, I believe 5 years ago, maybe we watched some movies where in the movie people could control their light bulbs, their TVs, whatever, with their cell phones or touch, and you thought that would be like millions in years in the future. Also like voice assistants, but now we have them, right? I have my Google Home Assistant here. I can control my light bulb with my cell phone. I can turn on the TV. It's not that far, and it's not that expensive. It's cheap. You would have thought that, oh, that's going to be super expensive, but now I don't know if you've seen this movie, I Robot or Your Robot with Will Smith,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yes.
And like those type of problems are not that far in the future, right? We're
Yeah.
accelerating very, very fast. And there's a movie, I don't remember what's the name of this movie, but it was very interesting because it was like this ship with of course humans, and there was this robot, an AI robot, and they were
Mm.
traveling to like a planet far, far away, like with the speed of light. And their
Mhm.
objective was like they found something that they thought that was God, right? That, like from the radar. And the robot asked, "Hey, why are you going there?" And the humans tell him like, "Because we think there's like our God is there. Like, and why do you want to go there?" Right? The robot asks. And they say, "Because we want to know why we were created, right? We want to know what's the purpose of life." And the robot thinks, and he asks the human, "Why was I created, right? What's my purpose?" And the robot tells, sorry, the human tells the robot, "We just created you because we could," right? And then the robot says, "How would you feel if that was the answer from your God, that they just created us because he could," right? It's
Mm.
like us, like when you plant something, right? Why do you plant like a flower or whatever? Because we can, right? You just want to do it. You're curious. It's like again with that thing, like we think so much of ourselves, but maybe we're not just that special after all. We could just be a simulation again, like
Yeah,
you've
it
seen that
is.
idea from Elon Musk. We just got to be, we can be a robot,
From
right? You can
Elon,
be
yeah, that's we are living in it. A simulation.
mhm,
It's
anything can
funny.
happen.
Anything can happen. It is. And even not that far. For example, you have these advances on genetics where you can change a lot of your pre-existing genetic possibilities of how are you going to born to be alive. For example, you can change your eyes. You can change. I think more and more you can change things more difficult. But imagine a time when you can change the color of your skin. So imagine that you have the money to decide what color are you going to, what race, what ethnicity would you will have. So that's very difficult because imagine if white people have a lot of money, and they decide to just, I don't know, or you choose, you can choose that intelligence, you can fix it, and you can create that your boy will have more cognitive skills. But imagine who will have that kind of service. Rich people. Poor people won't have that kind of service
Yeah.
to just change their own like kids and be more like transhumans or superhumans, because we will have superhumans. And again, the question is, what is like, where are we going? Just like, that's I think that's very deep when you ask, when you think about economy. That economy is just like, it's a phenomena that we are also created in the learning of how to manage our resources. But the question before that is why we want to manage our resources. Because we want to all live well. So that's a that's the difference when you talk about um capitalisms and the pro of free market. And that's all good, but we don't have to also forget that we are trying with this belief of we all need to live, that we need to use it in a way that we can all live better, until a point where we can all have this like equal level of skills and opportunities, right?
Yeah, that's the objective. And I think there's a comment I saw like a long time ago on a video that we should strive for. I mean, I think nobody deserves to die out of hunger and without having water, right? But once we get into a level where everybody has their basic needs met, I think we need to assure that everybody has equality of chances, right? But that doesn't mean that's not the same of equality of like results, right?
Mm,
Because everybody has different type of talents, everybody has different type of aspirations. So there are people who are going to have to, well, they want to work more and have more, and there are people who are just happy with what they have, right? But until we get there, right, until we get in a point where everybody has their basic necessities met, like everybody has a sink, water, a bathroom, food, etc., it's going to be very, very difficult. And surprisingly, it's difficult, but it shouldn't be, right? Because I've heard, did you know that if we put all the humans in the planet in Los Angeles, like standing up next to each other, like shoulder by shoulder, all the human race can be put in Los Angeles just standing up. So it's not, we're not that many people. There's a lot
mm,
of planet to go around. The only problem is distribution. That's where I remember a little bit of the writer of Sapiens, where he mentioned that there's gonna come a point where we shouldn't divide these things of nations and countries, and it should just be like a complete, let's say,
yeah,
human race, right? Let's say,
human
but
race. The
that's a
call,
lot
the
in the
call.
future.
That's a very
Yeah.
interesting book. I think Yuval has a great point. That's why I love the book, because that's the last question he gave. Uh, what is driving us, right? What is driving us, and is it really that we are all connected to one purpose that that drive us to live with principles and philosophies? Like, I think is humanism right now. But the question is, for example, he said that when you like analyze how cultures were like at the beginning, there were like in any part of the world, and they started to how do you say, consumirlas, um when
Consume?
yeah,
What do you mean?
like for example, when a tribu and a tribe for example, acquire a more bigger place by killing the spot of the other tribe, and then
Mhm.
they start to grow and they create empires. But when you see that and you analyze, the tendency is that we were first a lot of subdivided groups, and right now the tendency is that we're grouping together, and we are like mixing. For example, globalization is a consequence of that. It's like it's a culture created but by a by a mix of all the different cultures, and that's the beginning of how we are like starting to mix more and more and more, and internet is
Yeah,
creating that fix.
yeah. I think one like larger step is also this pandemic that we have with COVID, right? Because it's letting us know that maybe we could be better administrated if we were just one whole like nationality, let's say, right? Because there are countries who have more vaccines than they need, right? And there are
Mm,
countries who don't even have enough, right?
mm,
So it would be much better, right, just to redistribute all the vaccines or even all the know-how or professionals, right? There are countries that have exceeding level of doctors and other countries who need more doctors. So these type of things like the pandemic is letting us know that, hey, maybe we could all be benefited from like sharing resources. And I don't know, it's like these type of things are either gonna help us or like, I don't know, take us away. Like we mentioned, we could be extinct.
yeah.
There's a small story that I read long time ago from Isaac Asimov, that
Uh-huh.
he's a writer of futuristic novels, I believe. Like he has a lot of books about futuristic things. He's the one who wrote the book for the movie I, Robot from Will Smith that I was telling you about.
Really.
He wrote the book, right? So they got inspired for the movie from that. But
Mm-hmm.
there's a small, I haven't read the book. I've read an extract of a small story, but it's funny because in to summarize, he talks about this concept. It's like there's a big computer, right? A big computer that you can ask them anything, right? It's like Google, let's say, right? He
Mm-hmm.
predicted this type of thing. And usually it's like a futuristic situation where we can grab energy from the sun, right? And these people ask the computer, hey, what are we going to do when the energy from the sun runs out, when there's no more energy? And the computer was like insufficient data to give a response, right? Because
Mm.
imagine like using all the energy from the sun, that's million years from now. And then they discovered that there were different suns and different galaxies, so they went to different galaxies, and the same question, what are we going to do when all of the suns from the galaxies like run out of energy? The computer said insufficient data and a lot of those things. And the thing is that there comes a time where we use all the energy from the whole universe, right, from different galaxies, and everything is absorbed and everything turns off. And then there's darkness. And the funny thing is, at the end, it says, and from this darkness comes the light. And then it gives you the idea that like maybe everything, those futuristic things happened, and then the big bang happens, right? So it's like a
Mm.
circle. It's like humans adapt technology, and then there's nothing, and boom, everything's black into again another explosion and big bang. And something like that is something that Elon Musk mentioned. He said, right now we're in the moment where we need to go to another planet. He says we have to go to Mars because maybe we have a window where, okay, we started with a big bang and then we become extinct. And there's a small window where we have the resources to go to the planet, because maybe what I told you could happen. It's a loop and we always have a window where we can go to the planet, but we have to take advantage of that. And I don't know if we're gonna go to the planet. I always wonder, like, are we going to be alive for this thing? Maybe we're gonna be alive when we achieve immortality. I know. Are we going to have the
Imagine.
money? Like, are we gonna
I've
have the money, like you said?
Yeah, I've heard about, for example, immortality. Have you heard about that word? It's not
No, no, no. What's that?
immortality. Is the meaning behind that is that it's not that you won't you can't you can die. You can die, but not like natural.
No, okay,
That's
I
the
get it.
difference. So you can live forever if no one kills you.
Yeah, yeah. Or if
Because
a car doesn't come and kills you, right?
yeah, because they start with the premise of that death is like a disease that you can fix if you with science, like for example, um of course it's going to be superhumans, but you can, for example, change something in your body that won't let you die. You won't go old. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's the most promising thing about living forever. It's not immortality, but it's that you can, like, how do you say,
Like
delay
stop.
delay
Yeah,
yeah,
delay.
delay your death, yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, would you want to live that life?
That long.
I mean,
Yes.
that type of life. I mean, not long,
I
but imagine living that type of life. I think in the book Sapiens, they also mentioned this. But imagine living that life, and I don't know, being sad because I don't know your parents couldn't afford this technology, or maybe because a friend dies, and he had this technology to be immortal, but I don't know, like a tree fell down and killed him. Like
Yeah.
they're still suffering. It's back to the question, like since we don't know what's the purpose of life, in my opinion, there isn't. We're
Mhm.
trying to create it, right? We're trying to create, okay, maybe we'll be happier if we live forever, right? Maybe we'll be happier if everybody has the resources, right? Maybe we'll be happier, I don't know. And everybody tries to, and again that comes to what we were talking about. Everybody tries to persuade you that their idea of purpose of life is the
Mm.
correct one, right? They don't have the ability to maybe say, hey, maybe what I'm thinking is not the right thing. Like
Yeah.
the Catholics, I don't know,
It's
the
your war,
Buddhist people.
your cosmovision, your world view of life. It's not reality. It's just your own appreciation and perspective of life. Yeah, I think that's something that I don't know. We you remember when we were talking about perspective a few years ago, like the sense of this enlightenment when you start to see more often when you are
Mhm.
like being aware of what you are understanding or what you're saying, of your own beliefs, that just be your own beliefs talking, right? Be mindful of that moment. It's funny, but I think it's one of the most better skills that someone could develop, because you will start to like be more mindful of who you are, right? Who you are, and how people are too.
I think again, like I can't I can't measure the impact of this pandemic on all the aspects of human life, but that is also related to that because I remember when I left work at 10:45 p.m. at night, I had to grab the bus and everything, and and I saw those people in the lines, and I knew there were people going to like very far places, the classic Peruvian, right? The classic Peruvian that has to wake up 5 a.m. because he works
Mm,
at, I don't know, Surco, but he lives in Comas. So he has to wake up to just I don't know, 900 soles a month, and he has to spend a lot of hours in traffic. He lives with a family. And I saw these people at the bus stop, and they were like unconscious. They were like robots. They're in
mm,
automatic. They were tired. They were just looking there, waiting on the bus. Their faces were like empty, right? They were
mm,
just living in automatic. They didn't question anything. They were just living in there. But then with the pandemic, that's like a big wake up call, and everybody was ripped out of the reality in like connected. I think maybe I hope so for a moment with the
mm,
reality that hey, we're just humans. They are just like animals. Maybe you can get extinct. Hey, my family members are dying. What can I do? My
mm,
job doesn't exist. My job is like, I was talking with my dad, and this is kind of sad because he's a producer, right? Like a concert producer. And he told me the other day he didn't study like any major, right? Because he's a self-made, a self-taught producer, music producer with concerts and huge and everything. He was making good money and everything, but he tells me, I've dedicated 30 years of my life to this, and now in this context, this know-how,
Mhm.
this information is worth nothing, right? Because when we're in crisis, the last thing that you think of is entertainment, right? First is food, then clothing,
Yeah.
then education, let's say.
Uh-huh.
And he told me maybe sometimes when there was like a political crisis, whatever, people did invest in entertainment because, okay, the country's fucked up, let's go drink some beer. But with a pandemic, you can't even do that. You can't even
Yeah.
go and drink some beer with friends, etc. It's like
You can
it's
be
very
with people.
shocking. It's
Yeah,
very
it's very sure.
shocking.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's maybe it's more difficult for people that we can't feel how they feel because they don't even have this opportunity to reflect because they don't have they they didn't stop working. They had to go stop because there are a lot of people that work by the day, so they have to go outside and sell, and that's the way they eat. So if they can go out, how are going to they make money? I think that's the worst part. I'm grateful, of course, of what we have, but I think that's the worst part.
Yeah, yeah. That's why, like I told you, I'm very grateful that I know it's just a coincidence. If I like I learned English or something and that helped me get a job, that I can still work teaching online and everything. Because like I know there are some things that are because of my ability and everything, but then like you said at the beginning, it's just chance. Maybe you're born in a first world country and in a third
It's
world country,
chance.
and you just have to work with that. That doesn't mean that you're gonna give up right at the beginning, but it's difficult. That's why I think, maybe I don't know if you share this thought also, like if you come from a privileged background, let's say, that doesn't mean that you've had it easy, right? That just means that you started with a benefit, but you've also had to work your ass off.
Mm,
But that's why I think I get sometimes this idea of wanting to share knowledge, helping others, let's say. Of course, it
yeah.
also comes with, oh, okay, maybe I can, I don't know, I can have gratitude, or I can have like economical benefits, or I can become famous. But there's also a part of you that tells you, hey, you're helping another person that maybe didn't have it as easy.
Yeah, and maybe it's a mix. For example, for me, it's a mix. Is how can I help a lot of people, and how can I live well too? Because I want to. I don't want to be grow old and have to work like the rat race of 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Having like 60 years old, 60 years old, 16, 80, for example. I don't know, or with how do you say that? What is the meaning of jubilación in English?
Wait, when you retire, you're talking about when you
Retire,
retire,
for example. Yeah,
retirement.
you can retire in another countries. Here is very difficult. It's just nothing of money, uh, it, it, unless you at least have your house, for example. But that's the way I am choosing. Like how do I find that mix where I can create wealth and I can create value for people, because that's the way we like can for your part is like it's nice for me. It's nice to do it because I like it. It's like it's I don't know, it's compassion, but it's also uh, good for society because you are helping others. If the other person do it too, so you start to develop talent, you start to develop more knowledge and more things for society. For society.
Yeah, yeah, I think everybody should have that perspective, but it's difficult to like make people think that way as we think, and I don't know, like we've talked about this before. I don't know why we think like we think, like how we like got
uh,
this conscious or got this idea of being
inside,
conscious about
yeah.
these things, this insight, because maybe it's because I don't know, we're in a level where we don't have to worry about things like, hey, what are we going to eat today, right? How are we going
Yeah,
to survive
it
today?
is.
Because
Yeah.
we're totally comfortable and we can think about other things. But it's difficult to ask another person from another background, hey, contribute to society. And like, dude, I'm trying to like eat today, right? I can't contribute to society if I don't have
Yeah,
anything to
it's
eat. But
understandable.
then there's another group of people like us, let's say in our same social economical status, and they just want to get rich, but they forget about this topic of doing something they like or contributing. Like there are a lot of people who are millionaires or who want to make money. Like I've seen people selling fusion or getting into stocks, bitcoins, and like, yeah, I'm gonna make a lot of money. And I'm like, I know I could make more money maybe selling real estate houses or things, but that's not fun for me, right? Because I know that anything you have to get money out of, you have to dedicate a lot of your time to it. And like I would
Mm,
prefer to dedicate my time to, I don't know, to music and making $20 an hour than dedicating my time to selling houses and making $100 an hour, for example, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It is. For example, I imagine a life where we can just live making music, and it's not is and even not making a lot of work to make music. It's just like, for example, chilling out, chilling, making music, and traveling. It's a nice dream, but it depends on us, right? It depends on us, and we have more chances to, today.
Yeah, I think I'm what's the word, optimistic about the things that are gonna happen, because I told you I'm really trying to develop every day this ability to do things, right? Because it's, I don't know if you've, I think you've also encountered this problem, like being a doer, it's very difficult. Like every day telling yourself, okay, today I want to do these three things, these three objectives. I don't know, call a client, learn this book, this course,
Mm,
but your body doesn't want to. Like your body is built to reject anything
mm,
that takes away energy. Your body just wants to save energy so you can live, eat, have sex, and reproduce, and that's it. And the
the
rest is
balance.
just, yeah, you just want to be
Yeah.
lazy with the rest.
Yeah, yeah, it's difficult for me to find that balance of how much do I want to put effort to my goals, and also having the time to not just relax, because you can relax like in your house. It's more deeply than relax. It's just forget, disconnect, and just forgot about that you're pursuing something greater, like your goals, right? And not being present, being like lost in the moment. That's different than just relaxing and taking a nap, or watching TV. It's very different. I think you can find that those moments when you practice, for example, meditation, or when you are at the beach, or when you are surrounded with nature, and just you develop the sense of, oh, this is life, this is life.
Yeah,
I'm present,
yeah,
like.
yeah. I find those moments like when I'm walking also like at the park or listening to music. It's like just forgetting that you have something to do or that you're doing something. It's just being there, right? Enjoying that moment,
Being there.
enjoying the physical sensations that those moments bring. But yeah, it's difficult to achieve that. Like we were talking about that even before the pandemic, and it was hard then, and now it's even like harder, right?
Yes. Let's seek for the truth with science. I think there's the
Hmm.
question. Well, my
Hmm.
it was nice. How about if we just end here and just take the time to chill the night? I love to talk with you. It's always funny, and how do you say, and educated, a very educated and reflective conversation.
Thank you for having me, man. I hope we can see each other again.
Uh, okay, see you later. Thanks.
See ya, man.